Okay, Chapter 4. Through the restricted area. It was midday by the time Ien and Andria skillfully descended to a gentle touchdown inside the gaping cave. Everyone wasted no time in unloading instruments and activating the wide steel doors shut. The ground shook when it hit the dirt, nearly sending them all off balance. But at last, they felt safe. Youthquake darted for the 9 trapdoors in back of the cave. Ien and Andria hesitated. Those weren't there before, Ien commented, pointing at the trapdoors with their little ladders jutting to the platform-like ground. Before when? Jason asked. Before you came, Ien carefully worded. Uneasily, they all climbed through the swinging trapdoors to the surface of the theater game room, where the soda fountain, bar, and game tables soaked in dusty rays of moonlight shining through the tall windows that only existed inside the building. The 9 trapdoors wildly flapped in and out of the floor on spring hinges until they finally settled. Then, unexpectedly, the trapdoors grew transparent until they faded away, and all that remained was the wood plank floor, as though they never were. Next, the foosball game faded and disappeared, then the pool table. As their minds registered all this, the soda fountain bar next behind them disappeared. The room was emptying itself out. "Let's get out of here," Ryan shrieked. They pushed through the double maroon doors. One by one, they tumbled outside onto the grassy glade basked in the full moon just before the entire brick building vanished. Gulping in crisp autumn air, they stared at the vast empty glade. It was much larger than they thought. At the far side of the clearing, a doe with a fawn lifted her head to appraise the scared, stiff humans. "It's like," Ryan tried to catch his breath, "it's alive." Then he realized he was clutching Runt in his left hand. He was a limp plush bear once more. Or was he ever alive? Was it all a dream? His eyes fell on Ien and Andria, looking around in equal bewilderment. What Ryan and his friends had just experienced was so overwhelming that their minds swirled with questions. At a loss for answers, they headed off through the woods, Ien and Andria following Youthquake with an anticipation like little children as to what they might discover next. When they emerged onto the Phoenix Nest parking lot, there was only a sporty Maverick in the parking lot. Jason halted. "One of the baddies?" "No, it's the manager's car," Darren assured him. "Come on, now's our chance." His 3 friends exchanged glances. Really? After all that just happened, all Darren could think about was booking another gig? His friends lagged behind, wary that Darren may be mistaken about the car, as their headstrong group leader charged right into the rustic nightclub. Emerging from his office, the manager, Mr. Gary, was startled by their bold entrance. "Hi, mister," Darren greeted. "Hi," replied Mr. Gary curiously. "We are a local band who just finished up some gigs, out of town," Darren eagerly announced. "Oh yeah, where?" the manager asked with genuine interest. "Scytheville," Andria replied before anyone could answer. "And in the jungle village," Ien started, but Valerie quickly muffled his mouth. Darren and Jason grew nervous. "Scytheville, huh?" Mr. Gary thought. "I never heard of that place." "Oh, what she meant to say was," Jason tried to repair the damage. "Oh, okay, yeah, the place out there, I know it," Mr. Gary reflected. It was all Jason could do to keep from running out. Valerie cringed. The manager thought a moment before saying more. They didn't dare say another word, their hopes hinging on edge. "You play rock? Hard rock? Top 10? Disco? What?" "Rock mostly. Some original tunes, some not," Darren's voice cracked. Well, as a matter of fact, are you booked this weekend? The baddies were scheduled, but they got a gig in Baltimore at some big hotshot club up there. I'm going to lose them before too long. Good, Darren and his friends all thought at once. Yeah, we can play. What time? What day? And what time? Darren twaddled. Jason nudged him with his foot to calm down. Saturday night. That's our best turnout. Right on. That'll be perfect, sir. Jason took over before anyone else acted like a maniac. What's the usual call time, sir? Oh, if you can get here by 6 to set up. The crowd usually starts wandering in around 7:30, 8. You can start about 8. Play all night if you want. Darren was so elated. He felt like he could fly. Sure, Darren's voice squeaked before he could secure it. Or we can get here earlier if you want us to. Darren pulled him aside and cut in. Thanks so much, mister. We'll see you Saturday at 6. Sure thing, kid. All right. So long now. The manager nodded and retreated to his office. Once outside of the Phoenix Nest, Jason leaned into Andria and those in earshot. I think he thought you said Sykesville. There is a Sykesville, Maryland. Sykesville? Andria queried. Darren leapt for joy. He punched the air with his fist several times and hooted with excitement. Is he losing his mind? Andria asked Valerie. Yeah, he's happy. He's just nutso, Ryan added in his best Fonzie impression as he skipped by. When they reached their homes, they were even more surprised to find out that though they had been gone for 3 days, they were never missed. Strangely still, all 4 of Youthquake were seen going through their daily routines of work or school. They talked, they ate, they interacted. Nothing was amiss, although they did seem a little aloof. Andria and Ien stayed over Darren's house as it was the easiest arrangements. His dad didn't care. Apparently, Darren had done better at work while he was away. He seemed more motivated in the past couple days than ever before, his father said. So sure, he could have friends stay over as long as he did an equally good job tomorrow. With Saturday only 4 nights away, working with motivation was easy. Darren was so hyped up he couldn't contain his energy and poured all of it into his job. He demanded that the band practice every night until show night, but Ryan and Valerie's mom only let them join in on Friday night because of their studies. The other downside was that Ien and Andria did not have their really neat instruments with them. That would have really made their sound. It had been heavy, man, Darren kept telling the 2 alien kids, although they couldn't figure out how you could add weight to something as intangible as music. So they said they would see if they could find something like their instruments here on Earth. They were also told not to talk about here on Earth while they were here on Earth. Jason took them to a store that sold instruments up the way in Bowie at an indoor mall one afternoon. He even played an 8-track of David Bowie on the way there. But none of the instruments in the store came close to the sound their instruments made. Jason spent Wednesday night practice with Ien and Andria trying to replicate their sound on a synthesizer. No, Tika. Stop. Tika's bored. He got close to the eerie whining sound Andria's gourd thing played. She said that would have to do. Thursday night at Darren's house, the boys watched Battlestar Galactica on TV from sleeping bags with Andria on the couch. Whenever Captain Apollo or Lieutenant Boomer or Starbuck fired their laser guns, Ien pointed out that not only did their pistols resemble the YSR pistol, but the sound was not far off from his jingle sticks, and where could he get one? Darren confirmed nowhere. Here it was all make-believe. Ien countered with, how was it those men got them? Failing to convince the boy that those guns didn't really work, Darren could not give him an acceptable answer. Make-believe and pretending it's real made no apparent sense to a kid from another world. Friday evening brought a grueling rehearsal. Darren had them go over two worlds 10 times, and every other number they knew at least 5 times each. Ien tried to persuade them to let him play this little instrument he found at a 5 and dime that day. "But I like it," Ien insisted. No kazoo," Darren rebuffed. "Rock bands don't play kazoos." Jason and Ryan couldn't stop laughing. Then came the long-awaited Saturday night. Darren had been waiting for this night his whole life, to play at the Phoenix Nest. Setup was nervous and awkward, with patrons trickling in, standing around watching them. This was a band they had never seen before. Wait, didn't they go to school with some of them? Hey, it's that group that played at the high school talent show. My kid brother told me all about them. Look, they made it to the big time. One creep chastised them. "Shut up, Matt." Darren spat over his microphone to the punk he knew. "Darren," Jason scolded him. By the time they were ready to play, the place was packed. Ien and Andria said they'd sit this one out since Jason had Andria's sound covered and Ien couldn't play his kazoo. So they went looking for Mr. Gary to claim their free sodas. Then Ryan disappeared. A string of aluminum foil connected to his amplifier stretched off stage, behind the black curtain, where Valerie found their bass player crouched over his ham radio, on which he was pinching the other end of the foil to the radio antenna. She rushed him off the thing to start playing before he could make sure everything was connected right. As they took their positions with the instruments, the noisy room settled down and waited. In the silence, Darren raised his fist under the bright lights. 1, 2, 3, he yelled, his voice echoing from his mic. Valerie started the quick beats of Two Worlds, which launched with a rush of guitar and synthesizer chords. The music flooded the rustic venue. Their surging sound bounced off every board and batten wall and off the ceiling. No one moved, completely entranced by the powerful and beautiful rock ballad. Behind the stage curtain, a gauge needle on the ham radio flipped from one end to the other. In the parking lot, a young couple were listening to their car radio in a Volkswagen Beetle when Youthquake's playing inside suddenly cut off the song they were listening to. Then a black van chugged up behind them and parked. In bright red letters, the words, "The Baddies," smeared its sides. The crowded club cheered Youthquake before they even finished their number when the front doors burst open and the 4 baddies piled in. "We're gonna kill you, kid!" Actually, he said, "We're gonna kill you, punks!" Hammerjack yelled at the top of his lungs. The 4 hairy men charged for the band on stage. Darren and his friends dropped their instruments and darted behind the curtain. Ryan grabbed the lifeless runt out of his bag and stooped to check his radio contraption. His eyes widened. "It's working," he gasped. Jason pulled him up and they ran out of the back. No sooner the baddies tailed them with rage in their eyes. Their gig at that big shot club in Baltimore was inexplicably canceled, so they had hoped to get back in time to play at the Phoenix Nest as usual. The darkness of the woods covered Youthquake as they fled the baddies not far from behind. They ran with all their might in direction of the theater, hoping it would be there. To their dismay, they reached the barren glade in the woods, only to be barred now from it by a tall barbed wire fence with a big rusting sign that read, "Restricted Area, Property of the United States Army." "Where did this come from?" Ryan panicked. "I don't know. Is this the right area?" Jason questioned. The baddies were now upon them, and they could hear them trampling through the foliage like bears. Valerie felt her feet sink a little into the ground. The baddies thrashed through the last of the trees when the ground gave completely beneath Youthquake, and they fell through the depth. The baddies stopped short of the dark crevice left from Youthquake's fall by the barbed wire fence, and stared at something on the other side that terrified them. A one-floor, red brick building that suddenly appeared and disappeared. They scrammed. "Ah, I'm blind! I can't see my hand in front of my face! I can't see my hand in front of my face!" They heard Jason yell, but could not see him. It was pitch dark. A soft yellow light pierced the two plastic eyes of Runt, which Ryan held out like a flashlight, revealing Jason staring in horror at his hand. Embarrassed, Jason lowered it. "I've just never been in so dark a darkness before," he explained. It was clear by the distress on his friends' faces neither had they. They were completely beset by total blackness. So thick it was, it literally saturated them. All they could see was bouncing patches lit by Runt's glowing eyes. There was no other source of light, and the silence. The air was completely still and damp, stagnant. One sec. Whoa, as I trip back. Hang on, let me get a drink of water. Lime water. Okay. There was stagnant, no current of wind, no movement of anything. It was a deafening silence. All right, let me back up. Let me get us back. All they could see was the bouncing patches lit by Runt's glowing eyes. There was no other source of light, and the silence. This air was completely still and damp, stagnant. No current of wind, no movement of anything. It was a deafening silence and stillness that chilled them. And bunched together, they couldn't move without hitting something hard. Swiped by Ryan's eyes, they could see it was a plain cement wall. Ryan faced the light to the ground. It was concrete. Just behind Ryan was another concrete wall. They realized now that they were standing in a tunnel. "Which way should we go?" Valerie asked. There was pitch darkness in both directions. There were really nothing to assess to make a wise choice. "Oh no," Jason screamed, alarmed that they could be lost and die before they were ever found. "I don't know, maybe we should just stay put. In the morning, light will shine in from above, where we fell in, and we'll be able to see more." He placed his hand on his thumping heart. But Ryan was already taking off down one way with their only light in hand. "Ryan!" Valerie yelled after him. Like moths, the rest of them rushed for his light. Then Ryan stopped and pointed Runt's eyes on something that looked like scribbling on the tunnel wall. It was numbers divided by slashes, a date, April 21st, 1999, Valerie read aloud. "What? No, it's 44, April 21st, 1944, Darren corrected her. "Do you think this was Fort Meade's underground installation they supposedly ran during World War II? I'll bet no one's been down here ever since," Ryan surmised. "That was just a legend, Rye," Jason told him. Or was it? "Hey guys," started Valerie. "Where's Ien and Andria?" Everyone grew quiet for so long, Darren chuckled nervously. "Weren't they behind us when we ran out of the nest?" "I thought they were," Jason replied. "I don't know. I guess not. I hope they're okay," Valerie worried. A waft of cool air whooshed in from the darkness ahead, scaring them. "Come on," Ryan urged them. "That could be a way out." They tried to keep up with Ryan to the end of the tunnel where they crossed some yellow and black striped paint on the ground into what felt like a huge open area, but it was too dark to tell. The airflow streamed from the far end of this vast room. They pressed on close together. Through another caution-stripped entryway, they edged into what felt like a smaller room. They immediately banged into their shoulders against something metallic. Ryan pointed the glowing eyes onto it. It was an old bunk frame with a thin mattress. "Wow," Ryan whispered. The room had no way out, so they backtracked into the larger area and followed it until they came to another entryway. This led them into another empty room and then another. "It's no use. We're just going in deeper. We're never going to get out," Jason feared. At this point, they all had doubts about finding their way back to where they fell through in the first place. "Stuck here in the dark," Ryan sang in a silly tone to lighten them up. His sister cracked a smile, although it was too dark for him to see it. Then Ryan yawned. They were growing tired. "Ryan, do you think you could lead us back to that bunk room?" Darren asked. "Maybe if we call it a night, then in the morning there might be light coming from wherever the heck the real entrance is. There has to be a way in and out of here." "Good idea," Jason commended his lifelong bud. After all, air was flowing from somewhere. They wouldn't suffocate. Ryan raised Run up high like a torch, spilling some light onto Valerie's frightened face. "I can't sleep in this place." Yes, you can," Darren assured her, taking hold of her arms. It was one of those rare moments when Darren would say something with a weightiness that made it sink into the pit of her and removed all uncertainty she held. They followed Ryan as his light moved further on along the wall. Back in the bunk room, they each felt for metal bunk frames that fortunately had mattresses and collapsed onto them, more exhausted than they had realized from their ordeal. As soon as Runt turned off Runt's eye lights, the pitch darkness filled their open eyes. It was almost difficult for any of them to tell if their eyes were open or closed. Never had they been in darkness so thick as what they were in now. "God, please get us out of here," Jason nervously prayed aloud, referencing page 20 in the study guide. And in no time, fatigue overtook fear, and they each fell into a deep sleep. Valerie woke upon realizing she had been sleeping for, well, she couldn't tell how long. It seemed slightly less pitch dark than before. She was able to make out the edges of her fingers when she moved them in front of her face. She could hear the boys chatting at a distance. It sounded like they were in the next room or so. Her brother sounded the furthest away. Despite feeling comfortable on the soft mattress and still sleepy, she got up so as not to get left behind. But of course they wouldn't leave her there. She hoped. With that, she swung out of the bottom bunk. The doorway going out of the bunk room was even a slight shade lighter darkness. So she carried on until she bumped into Jason, giving him a start. "Jiminy, is that you, Valerie?" "It is," she smiled. "Yeah, it's getting lighter this way," they heard Ryan yell from a distance. "Come on, you guys. Keep talking so we can find you," Darren called out, his voice echoing. "I can't think of nothing to say," Ryan's voice echoed back. "Then sing something," Valerie suggested. A moment later they heard, "Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream." They followed Ryan's voice to a room in which they could make out a few tall machine cabinets covered with circular dials. Continuing in the direction of Ryan's voice, they soon bounced against hard walls again, and Ryan stopped singing. "Keep singing," Darren yelled. No response. "Great," Jason swallowed. "Ryan!" Valerie shouted desperately. They could tell they were in another narrow tunnel with a sliver of bright light ahead at what they hoped was the end. Soon the cement walls became dirt walls, and the sharp light gradually expanded as they pressed towards it. The brightness began to blind them the larger it got. Having been without light for so long, they covered their eyes as they moved through the now door-sized exit of the tunnel. They were relieved to find themselves in the rounded cave they had grown familiar with its beautiful view of the vast landscape of the wild planet around the towering sugar cone mountain they had named it. It really was breathtaking and so serene, this wild planet. The pudgy shuttlecraft sat off to the side, outside, completely bathed in purple stain, where there stood Ryan with Ien and Andria. The two YSR soldiers were soaked with what looked like grape juice as they splashed the shuttle with buckets they filled from a large barrel. "What the blazes are you doing?" Darren asked them. "We are staining the shuttle with berries we found," Andrea explained. "It looks like a big grape now," Valerie frowned. Jason stared at it, fascinated that the ship could be stained that way. However, the shuttle had a porous texture, as though it were made from something like pumice or a coral rock instead of metal, as he had presumed. The conversation drew him out of his mind. "Well, hopefully it will not be so apparent of being YSR on first look," Andrea sighed. "What happened to you two last night?" Jason jumped in. "When those angry men came in, we ran out and went to the theater," Andrea explained. "We thought you were right behind us." What'd you guys do to those guys to make them so mad at you?" Ien wanted to know. "Nothing," Darren responded, dismissing his memory of damaging Hammerjack's engine. Andrea then stated, "We've got a mission to undertake." The 4 band members remained silent, waiting to hear more. But that seemed to be it. "What are you talking about?" Darren prodded. "We picked up a signal from planet Latinus on the shuttle radio. Apparently, the leaders of the 7 system planets are adjourning here on the wild planet for a secret meeting to discuss the whereabouts of their missing children. I suspect they are now aware of the existence of the universal regime, and that they are hoping to find us somehow, somewhere on the wild planet," Andrea explained. "And we could tell them exactly where," Ien exclaimed. "So we have to go." After first checking the giant stage for their instruments, nope, not this time. Youthquake wasted no time leaving the theater, though leery of it vanishing again, to collect their instruments from where they had last remembered leaving them, at the Phoenix Nest. Fortunately, Mr. Gary was around to let them in, and fortunately, the theater waited for their return. That's chapter 4.